I let it in one afternoon by opening the window facing the garden a crack, and the hand descended lightly on the edge of my work table, which it grasped easily in its palm. Its fingers spread slightly apart, as if ill at ease, until it found the spot it wanted on the piano, on the frame of a portrait, or sometimes on the wine-colored rug. I liked it because it was not at all demanding, and it made me think of birds or dry leaves. What did it know of me? It would appear at my window without fail in the afternoon, sometimes hurriedly, apparently urging me to open it. Other times leisurely, ascending the stairs of ivy where its passage left a deep path. Our pigeons knew it well. Often in the morning I heard a sustained and frantic cooing, and I knew that the hand was walking among the nests, palm cupped to hold the white breast of the youngest birds, the rough feathers of the robust males. It loved the pigeons and pitchers of clear, fresh water. How many times I found it on the edge of a glass vase, with one finger plunged gently into the water that soothed it and made it dance. I never touched it. I knew that it would free itself from that mysterious grasp, and for several days the hand went among my things, opening books and notebooks, drawing its index finger with which it seemed to read across my favorite poems, and seemingly to slowly approve them line by line. Time passed. External events, which at the time saddened and marked me, began to loose their force, to soften their whip that now struck me a glance. I neglected my math. Moss grew on my best suit. Almost never left my room, waiting each day for the hand to reappear, hopefully listening for the first, the farthest, and most hidden rustling of ivy. I gave it names. I like to call it Dig, because that is a name that makes you think. I tempted its probable vanity by leaving rings and bracelets on the mantel and secretly observing its behavior. Once I thought it was going to adorn itself with jewels, but it studied them, going around them without touching them, like a cautious spider, and although the day came when it slipped on an amethyst ring, it was only for a second, and it dropped as if it had been burned. When it had gone, I quickly hid all the jewels, and thereafter it seemed more content. Thus the season passed, some uneventful, some with weeks of violent lights, but those strident cries did not penetrate into our refuge. Every afternoon the hand would return, often drenched by the autumn rains, and I would watch it lie on its back on the rug, drying itself carefully, one finger after another, sometimes with little shudders of satisfaction. On cool evenings its shadow had a purplish tint. Then I would light a brazier by my feet, and it would huddle up and barely budge, except to get a record album or ball of yarn that it liked to twist and tie. I soon realized that it was incapable of remaining still for long. One day it discovered a bowl of clay and fell upon it. For hours and hours it molded the clay while, with my back to it, I pretended not to be interested in what it was doing. It molded a hand, of course. I let it dry and put it on my desk to show that its work pleased me. That was a mistake. Dig turned out to be disturbed by the contemplation of that ridged and somewhat convulsed portrait. When I hid it, that hand discreetly pretended not to have noticed. My interest soon turned analytical. Tired of being confounded, I wanted to know. Invariable and regrettable end to all adventures. Many questions arose about my guest. Did it feed, feel, understand, love? I left traps. I made experiments. I had noticed that the hand, while able to read, never wrote. One afternoon I opened the window and set a pen and some white paper on the table, and when Dig entered, I went away so as not to disturb it. Through the keyhole I watched it make its usual rounds, then uneasily it went to the desk and took the pen. I heard scratching of the quill, and after a nervous interval I entered the studio. On a slant with elongated letters, Dig had written, "This resolution annuls all the preceding until the next order." I never succeeded in getting it to write again. After this period of analysis, I began to truly love Dig. I loved its way of looking at flowers in their ceramic vases, its slow circle all around a rose, reaching out to touch a petal with the tips of its fingers, and its way of cupping its palm to surround the flower without touching it, its way perhaps of smelling the fragrance. One afternoon, when I was cutting the pages of a book, I noticed that Dig seemed secretly to want to imitate me. I went out to look for more books, thinking that it might like to have its own library. I found some curious works that seemed to have been written by hands, just as others seemed to have been made by lips or heads, and I bought a small page cutter as well. When I placed these objects on the rug, its favorite spot, Dig regarded them with its usual caution and only decided to touch them several days later. I cut the pages to give it confidence, and one night, have I mentioned that it only left at dawn of disappearing with the darkness, it began to open the books and examine their pages. It soon achieved an extraordinary dexterity. The page cutter entered the white or opalescent flesh with a dazzling grace. Its task completed, Dig placed the page cutter on the mantel beside its other favorite objects: yarn, drawings, burnt matches, a wristwatch, little piles of ashes, and then it descended, lay face down on the rug, and began to read. It read with great speed, marking the words with a finger. When it encountered an illustration, it stretched out over the page and seemed to be sleeping. I observed that my selection of books had been appropriate. It returned again and again to certain pages: Etudes de Main by Gautier, Le Gant de Crème by Reverie, and it placed strands of yarn to mark their place. Before going, while I was sleeping, it shut its volumes in a little dresser that I had provided for that purpose, and there was never anything out of place when I awoke. In this thoughtless manner, in the simplicity of mystery, we lived together for a time in mutual respect and consideration, having left curiosity behind, having abolished surprise. What absolute perfection we enjoyed! Our life then was purposeless satisfaction, a pure, spontaneous song. Dig would enter through a window and initiate an experience that was entirely mine, apart from the restraints of parents and obligations, repaid by my desire to please what in some ways liberated me. And thus we lived, for longer than I can say. Until in my weakness I succumbed to the intervention of reality. One night I dreamed. Dig was in love with my hand, the left one probably, since Dig was a right hand, and it took advantage of my sleep to kidnap its loved one by amputating it with the page cutter. I woke up terrified, comprehending for the first time the madness of leaving a weapon within reach of such a mystery. Still awash in the turbid waters of that vision, I looked for Dig. It was curled up on the rug and really did seem to be watching the movements of my left hand. I got up and went to put the page cutter out of its reach, but then I repented and put it back, hoping Dig would forgive or forget. Dig seemed disillusioned and linked its fingers in an undefinable smile of sadness. I know it will never return. My shameful conduct had infected its innocence with resentment and disdain. I know it will never return. Why do you reproach me, pigeons, clamoring up above for the hand that will return no more to caress you? Why do you incline so, Flanders Rose, that it will no more encircle your delicate dimensions? Emulate me, who have returned to my figures, put on a good suit, and shown the world the appearance of a proper citizen.